Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful 12th of September, 2023. Coming up this Tuesday's Rant of the Crusty podcast, episode 229. The PM's plane busted and the trip a bust. More mask issues looming from Dr. Theresa Tam, and MP Micheal Chong testifies in the US over Chinese interference. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. I do smoke cigarettes, ladies and gentlemen, and I do drop the odd F-bomb or two. See you in a bit.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Tuesday Rant on the Crusty Canuck podcast, episode 229. That's right. Topics are PM's plane busted and the trip a bust. More mask issues limited from Dr. Theresa Tam, and MP of the Conservative Party, Micheal Chong, testifies in the U.S. to a captive audience, believe it or not. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck, on this beautiful Tuesday, 12th of September. Hope everything's okay. And remembrance to the fallen on September 11th, there 2001 as well. It's one of those days in history where you remember where you were when that happened, kind of thing. I remember some of the teachers in school when I was a kid telling me stories they had when they remember where they were when the moon landing happened and when Kennedy was shot, if you want to go back that far. Yeah, I think our generation especially has what happened on 2001, around 9:30 in the morning, September 11th. And regardless of how you feel about foreign policy or not, what happened was devastating. So it's good that we remember and understand too, that there are people out there in the world that really just don't like the Western system. They just don't like the Western values. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories over that. I'm not going to worry about that. Needless to say, it's just good to remember. And a lot of good people were murdered and killed that day. And let us never forget that fateful day. I remember the footage. I remember the screams. You watch different angles, people's personal recordings, what have you, and all the documentaries, and just the impact it had on the world really changed a lot of things. Anyhow, as I carry on, I digress. If you like and hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this content on all of your social media platforms. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you see me on the tube and on Rumble, give me a thumbs up. Get the likes going there too. Beat our government trying to ram down C11, C18, and C36 in the name of being fair, when we all goddamn know it's about censorship. But like I say, the Prime Minister has spent some time in India. Of course, like I said, my last episode, he's talking about fairness and equality and trade and all this good stuff, climate change. And there's a story that comes from Lorne Gunter from Toronto Sun. I'll cue that video up here for you shortly. And he basically talks about how Trudeau is just basically a foreign affairs nightmare in regards to the world stage and how he operates too. Now, a lot of this is tongue-in-cheek why I do the Tuesday rant, because I just speak my mind, ladies and gentlemen. But you've all heard me rant and rave about Justin Trudeau's inept policies, his wokeisms, his attitudes. And the man is just in politics because of nepotism, not because he's actually qualified and he cares about change and being safe and fair to everybody. He's a putz. He's a walking contradiction, right? Spends more time worrying about his socks and his hair. We've seen that from 2015 until at least 2018, where people were worrying about his socks and everything. Oh, he's such a handsome fellow. Oh, look at him and his socks and his hair, right? When he's supposed to be negotiating NATO deals and international trade deals. The foreign press and our press is just as guilty of it too, worrying about the man's fucking socks. Now it's coming back to bite him on the ass. Now, I guess he was delayed in India because there was technical issues with his Airbus, the government airplane, the government jet that's supposed to fly all Canadian dignitaries around the globe, wherever they may be. and there's been technical issues in regards to upgrades. Now, I will put a story up there from Canada's beloved CBC and how they explain it too, and I'll use my military point of view and why things aren't working as they should when it comes to government procurement. But like I said, I digress again, ladies and gentlemen. Anyhow, the Prime Minister is on his way back, I guess, to Canada now. And they fixed the problem with the aircraft. They had it all sorted out. Needless to say, it's a shit show. How else do you say it, ladies and gentlemen? How else do you promote it? You know, for this Tuesday's episode. I'm getting tired of talking about Justin Trudeau. Honestly, I am. You know, to my American listeners, to my other those in Australia, and to my listeners in Europe. For those of you who thought Justin Trudeau was a good guy, guess again. You know, he intentionally put this country into debt. He lied to our troops. He insulted our veterans. And these are not just veterans that just served a couple of years in the Canadian Forces or in the reserves. These are veterans that went to Afghanistan, like yours truly. Okay? These are veterans that actually served in a war, not just a peacekeeping operation, an actual war. Okay? The Taliban were not nice people. We weren't there to keep the peace. We were there to make it and to make sure there was fairness, make sure there was equality for people, make sure they had opportunities to do things that they never were allowed to do before. You know, prior to the Soviet onslaught, during the Soviet onslaught, and during their civil war they had back in the 90s. Okay, so that's a different story altogether, ladies and gentlemen. But I'll cue up a video here from Lauren Gunter from the Toronto Sun and his assessment on how Trudeau is not a foreign affairs savior. He's not. He's he's not. When you watch him, Melanie Joly, and anybody discuss foreign policy with anybody in regards to Canada, they all fail. They all have a failing grade. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, you watch and decide for yourself.
Remember in 2015, right after Justin Trudeau had been sworn in as Prime Minister for the first time, he got in his limo, he went down Sussex Drive to the Pearson Block, which is where Global Affairs Canada, our foreign affairs department, has its headquarters. He walked into the atrium, it's 2 floors, and people just fell all over him. They cheered. These supposedly objective bureaucrats who are supposed to serve any prime minister, regardless of party, in a very objective way, fell all over him as though he were some sort of Korean boy band member and they were teenage girls. It was one of the most disgusting displays I've ever seen by bureaucrats in favor of one party and one leader over another. But this was because they were so sure Justin Trudeau was going to bring Canada back on the world stage. That bad, mean Stephen Harper, he'd ruined our foreign relations because he was a warmonger. He was a bad man. He had bad relations with a lot of great countries like China. And Justin Trudeau was going to solve that. Well, as we've seen now from Justin Trudeau's second disastrous trip to India, this time for the G20 meeting last week, Justin Trudeau is a foreign affairs failure, period. And not just because his plane wouldn't start and he had to wait 3 days to get a replacement plane so he could get back home. That's immaterial. I remember one time in 1979, Joe Clark went on a Middle East tour to show how important he was, how serious he was in foreign affairs, and his luggage got lost. And that became the story of the trip. But he did prove that he did know something about foreign affairs. Trudeau went to India and proved he knows nothing about foreign affairs. Nothing. There's a great shot from the G20 meeting of Azali Assoumani, president of the Comoros Union. Now, I had to look up Comoros. I don't know where it was. It is a country consisting of 3 islands off the coast of Madagascar. And there is Prime Minister Modi of India giving his great warm welcome to a man who's the head of a country of 800,000 people with a GDP that is 0.1% of Canada's. Assoumani gets this big welcome from Modi. Trudeau gets the cold shoulder. And that's because Trudeau has been patronizing towards Modi in all of their relations together. And he refuses to do anything about the Khalistani separatist movement in Canada, which is largely funded by Indo-Canadians of Sikh origin, and it's causing problems for the Indian government. Now, I think a lot of the things that the Khalistani movement does in Canada are free speech. You get to have a referendum about whether or not you'd like your homeland to separate from India. It may be embarrassing to the Indian government, and Trudeau can admit that to Modi. But he can't stop people from having a free expression of their views in Canada, nor should he try. But Trudeau patronizes Modi. He treats him as though he were the prime minister of an inferior country, despite the fact that India has 1.4 billion people and GDP that is greater than ours. Trudeau treats him like the little brother or an inferior person who is just standing there waiting for Canadian largesse. And if I were Modi, I would be ticked too. So Modi has done everything he can. First, in the 2018 trip that Trudeau took with the costumes and the dancing, the fool's trip, the Bollywood trip of India. And now Modi has done the same things. He pushed Trudeau over to the sidelines at the G20, and nobody tried to rescue him. Biden seems to have lectured him from the United States point of view, and Trudeau has done everything he can in his 8 years as prime minister to destroy Canada's foreign relations. He was going to be the great savior. The people at the Pearson Bloc, that first day he went there, thought that he was their god on foreign relations. But he has been a complete and total buffoon. For Post Media, I'm Lauren Gunter.
And that was Lauren Gunter from the Toronto Sun there. Quite the inquisitive journalist. And an actual journalist of that too, ladies and gentlemen, not one of those fly-by-nighters that take a stand over wokeism. Just an all-around decent human being too, apparently, from what I've heard. Anyhow, carrying on with the whole issue of today's episode. That's right. The PM's plane trip a bust. More mask issues looming from Dr. Tam and MP Micheal Chong testifying in the U.S. against Chinese interference. This is the Tuesday Rant of the Crusty Canuck podcast, episode 229. Right back after this.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And just a reminder, too, ladies and gentlemen, looking here to see, follow and subscribe to me on these platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, now X, Instagram, YouTube, and Rumble, too. You can also find me at iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, and Podbean, my podcast host platform there, too. Once again, thank you very much to those fine people in Oregon, Alaska, and Washington State. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. And especially kind words I will be receiving from people when I comment and like their stuff. The fine people at Northern Perspective, too. The fine lady and gentleman, Cypher and Fox, who have made some great content lately. So give them a check out, too, ladies and gentlemen. They're a down-to-earth, blue-collar couple that don't take any shit. And they're starting to represent an abundance of Canadians that are getting tired of the bullshit too. So give them a shot too. I'll leave links in my description for you to follow. Their latest episodes are fucking excellent. So please check them out as well. You may be a little concerned with the avatars they use. It's because they have to protect their jobs. I just leave it at that there, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, carrying on with this fine episode of the Tuesday Rant. More mask issues looming from Dr. Tam and Micheal Chong testifies in the U.S. Now, I had a video queued up of Dr. Theresa Tam. I don't know what happened to it. I had some issues with my antivirus. I don't know. Maybe something was tainted on said video. I don't know. But needless to say, I'll just summarize. Dr. Theresa Tam is the health aficionado of Canada, basically. And when the pandemic started, at one time she said no mask. At one time she said no gloves. And then she changed her mind. More masks, more gloves. She actually recommended, ladies and gentlemen, wait for it. She actually recommended that when it came to being safe over the respiratory infection known as, the beer bug, the coronavirus, okay, this is what she had to say. She basically said, use glory holes when it comes to practicing safe sex with the COVID infection. Now, I don't know about you, but I used to think glory holes were a running joke, something you use out of desperation. Now, if you have a good sense of humor like I do, I'm sure you've seen it in movies such as Scary Movie, where the killer is putting the little thing through the hole and he's poking the guy in the ear and guy dies, that kind of thing. That's what I think of glory holes. I don't think of it as actually practicing safe sex to keep yourself alive. It's something you do on the fly when you're driving a transport truck and you're feeling a little lonely on the road and you just gotta take that chance. You know what I mean? And never in my life have I ever thought a medical professional would actually recommend doing that in the name of safety. But that's Dr. Tam for you. Now, there is footage of her out there doing a press conference today. I saw it briefly today. I was doing some work outside my wife, so I didn't have time to sit and get angry at the mainstream media for putting out such garbage. But I did manage to get a few minutes of seeing her with her mask on, of course, her and her coworker with a mask on, and somebody else with no mask on. Okay. Telling us that, okay, get ready for the season because it's coming. It's coming. So is she intentionally foreshadowing something? Right? Are we going to have to look around on this again and hope for the best and prepare for the worst? Or are we just going to say no? My audience out there, I would highly suggest that we say no. Just like Nancy Reagan used to say in the 80s, just say no. Just say no. No. No more effing masks. No more effing jiffy jabs. No more effing garbage. No more effing lockdowns. No more effing crap. Okay? None. No more. We don't need it. We don't need the chaos. We don't need the bullshit. We don't need the totalitarianism. We don't need the fly-by-night, overnight freaking authoritarians because they went to school and they have a medical background. We need people to call the shots. A little more common sense. Now, I don't want to sound like a broken record or sound like a Pierre Poilievre aficionado or any kind of opposition to the present governments. I want to sound like a blue-collar Canuck here and talk to blue-collar people. No more. No more of this shit. No more of this garbage. Okay? Whatever powers that be tried their grand experiment of locking everybody up globally, that is, not just in Canada or the United States, but globally. Okay? And every country, every one of our leaders, doesn't matter if it's Canada, the United States, Britain, France, how many of those leaders were flying around going to parties and hobgobbles, having a good time at the taxpayers' expense while people were struggling to keep their businesses open? While tax collectors in this country, people have given me a hard time, were collecting a few extra bucks under the table, plus their so-called meager salary to stay afloat. Now, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, these are the same people that protested a few months back, talking about a fair wage and fair work hours and the toxicity of the workplace. Oh, oh my! When I have to sit and type and call people to take their money that they've earned. Oh, the stress. Yeah, cry me a fucking river. Not to mention 20 of those individuals that were fired recently, and plus another 600 of those individuals that are being investigated as we speak. Interesting, eh? There's something fishy and stewy's going on. But apparently there's more investigations happening as we speak. Now, I don't have any updates on the convoy trials just yet. I know the defense apparently is doing a good job in the name of Tamara Litch and in the name of Chris Barber. So well done once again to those individuals that have stood by. Okay. And I've had some interesting conversations too the past couple of days with some people on Twitter, now known as X, or formerly Twitter, known as X. Okay. And I've cut a few people off because I just got tired of their lefty garbage. Lefty garbage. But what about feelings? What about rights? So I'm going to say this out there. And if you disagree, please send me an email, send me a comment, let me know how you feel. I like to engage in dialogue here, but I don't have time for insults. I don't have time for people worrying about my marriage or my toque or my haircut or the little zit I got in my face here from the heat. Whatever. Speak your mind and encourage it. Let's get the dialogue going. But what gets me, this whole thing with the trans issues, with kids in school trying to keep it from their parents because the parents might abuse them or neglect them, total bullshit. I went on my way to talk to trained professionals in regards to child psychology and to people's psyche. And they've actually agreed that when it comes to the trans issue, let the kids decide on their own. But the parental units need to know. If they're under the age of 18, in the name of the law, in the name of basically what we do in this country, parents need to know. So all the SJWs out there, and you all know who you are, oh, you do, who think Marxist was a genius and Che Guevara was just misunderstood and Stalin was just a little bit, too grumpy, wake the fuck up, okay? It's not up to a teacher to put values to what a family should be. That teacher's family, yeah. His or her family, sure. When it comes to teaching kids, this is what you do. You teach kids. What a novel idea. Teach them how to read, how to write, how to put how to put a conversation forward, how to promote proper sentence structure, how to spell accordingly. And we're all guilty of it too. Thank God for spell check sometimes, and grammar lessons, what have you, and mathematics. And to teach them to ask the critical questions, to be critical. Now, what gets me is people are saying, well, why is everybody so up in arms over this transgender issue? Well, because you're hiding information from parents and parents that need to know. Now, granted, there are some parents out there that have been abusive. There are parents out there that have done some really, really stupid and rotten things to their children. So you punish those individuals who do that. And we have things in place already that protect kids from being physically harmed by unruly or ungodly parents. But to sit there and assume, we're going to hide this from their parents because they might get abused. That's just like saying, well, you drive a truck and you might have the odd beer. So we're going to give you a ticket just in case you decide to do both. Like jumping the gun on it. Anyway, I'll leave that for another episode, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, carrying on the whole Dr. Tam and Micheal Chong. That's right. Micheal Chong actually had a testimony in the United States Senate there. He talked to some American officials in regards to Chinese interference. I won't carry on anymore with Dr. Tam. I just find that whole thing a buffoon, just a mockery. She made quite a bit of money off the pandemic, by the way. So I'll leave that for another story. But anyhow, Dr. Chong, not Dr. Chong, I can't speak English today. MP of the Conservative Party, Micheal Chong, I think he represents a riding near or dear toward GTA, I believe. I think it's around the Thornhill area. I think Melissa Landsman's riding or close to it. Anyhow, I got a story here from the National Post that I will read along for you, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite interesting how things have been turning and how the Liberals are really, really getting upset about some of the things that are being brought to surface, and they're all scared. Oh, my. That's what happens when you have an irresponsible government, ladies and gentlemen. It rears its ugly head. So this is from the National Post. I've actually published today from the Canadian Press from James McCartan. MP Micheal Chong, China is targeting me because I am being effective. Conservative MP in D.C. to tell U.S. lawmakers about being a foreign meddling target. So the Conservative MP at the center of Canada's foreign interference saga is telling his story today to U.S. lawmakers on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Micheal Chong, whose tale of Chinese meddling has been a political headache for the federal Liberal government, is testifying before the Congressional Executive Commission on China. The commission, established in 2000 to keep tabs on Beijing's human rights record, is a bipartisan committee of U.S. senators, House members, and administration officials. So Chong says one of his main goals is to make clear just how widespread Chinese foreign interference is both in North America and around the world. He says he'll be calling for closer U.S.-Canada alignment on presenting a united front to China. Chong says he remains undaunted by the risk that his testimony ends up making him an even more prominent target for Beijing, particularly in the U.S. Quote unquote, they're targeting me because I'm being effective, and so I feel an obligation to continue to speak up, to give voice to the voiceless, he said in an interview. There are people across the country who have been targeted for years, whose stories go untold and who suffer in silence. That's what's keeping me going. Other scheduled witnesses include Yana Gorvashkia. My apologies, I cannot pronounce that name. Anyhow, the pro-democracy DC think tank Freedom House, Laura Harth, the campaign director of the human rights group Safeguard Defenders, and a Uyghur activist Rushan Abbas. So In a statement, the commission accused China of systemic attempt to rewrite global norms and resorting to everything from forced rendition and surveillance to online harassment and street assaults to intimidate dissidents and political prisoners. Witnesses will discuss China's tactics, specific cases and targets in the United States, Canada, and worldwide, and explore ideas for further congressional and administrative action to transatlantic cooperation. The commission's database includes Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, the two Canadian Michaels, who were arrested and detained without cause in China for nearly 3 years, an apparent act of retaliation for Canada's detention of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. Meng, chief financial officer and doctor of Huawei founder Ren Zhigfei, was arrested in Vancouver in 2018 on an extradition warrant linked to Justice Department charges of bank and wire fraud. In Canada, as in the US, it can be difficult to avoid the specter of partisan politics when talks turn to China and foreign policy, particularly after the beer bug COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the global supply chains. Virtually every domestic policy decision in the US is made within broader context of ending U.S. dependence on Chinese suppliers for raw materials, manufactured goods, and high-tech components like computer chips and battery minerals. North of the border, where the federal government's handling of allegations of Chinese foreign interference has triggered a maelstrom of controversy, and public inquiry is scheduled to begin early next week. The federal Liberal government, Chong said, still hasn't done enough in the wake of Huawei saga to properly fortify its foreign policy approach to China, even as the U.S. and other democracies adopt more of a hawkish stance. Quote unquote, it doesn't surprise me because I think it's a characteristic of the current government to be slow on implementation, he said. This government can't execute, and so it does not surprise me that they are slow on reacting to this threat. Quebec Court of Appeal Justice Marie-Josée Hogue will lead the 16-month inquiry, which is expected to delve into alleged in Canadian affairs by China, Russia, and other foreign states and non-state actors. I will leave this here for you all to read yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. So basically, he was saying to the Senate committee that, yeah, he's been targeted, he's been harassed, he has family here, family there. They've had some interesting emails and some interesting visits. To my American friends, there is an investigation that will happen. Like I said, 16 months. So we don't know exactly what's going on with it all. So that's the thing. And when they actually had the first inquiry, the special rapporteur to report about what has been going on, the man was the friend of the Justin Trudeau Foundation. Our former Governor General, okay, was a friend to the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. So that speaks for itself. Okay. Friends with benefits, friends with this, slap and tickle for your pickle. Oh, okay. Nothing to see here, folks. Just some silly allegations, and then we can all just go home and have a good time and not worry about it. Just keep slapping and tickling for your pickling.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And once again, we're back to the Tuesday Rant, the Crusty Canuck Podcast, episode 229. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Topics for opinions, plane trip and the plane busted and the trip busted. More mask issues looming from Dr. Tam, speculation. And I just read to you the MP Micheal Chong testifies in the US. And if you're liking here to see, please click like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up to my YouTubers out there, my Rumblers. Please give me a thumbs up. Give me some comments. Get the algorithm going. Help us Canucks get our words out there. And, make some money too. And if you feel like donating, links will be in the description for you guys who want to donate your leisure. And a special thank you out there to Michael, one of my fans, one of my subscribers. Thank you very much, sir, for that giant donation you gave me. You didn't have to do that. But hey, you've got my email. Send me an email, your address. I'm going to send you some Crusty Canuck swagger there too. How about a hat and a t-shirt? Let me know in the comments there, buddy. Let me get you set up. But thank you once again for your great donation, sir. Fantastic. I really appreciate that, Michael. Thank you very much. And just let me know in the comments your mailing address, or just send me an email and I'll get you squared away. I'll get you some Gucci Crusty Canuck kit there for you too. And you yourselves, my wonderful audience too. Check out my store. Links will be in the description. And a customized girl. I got hats, I got t-shirts, got swimsuits, got mugs, got other paraphernalia. I got some catchy military sayings like hua, heard, understood, acknowledge. In Canada, we'd say hua, H-U-A. And my American friends like to say ooh-ah and oorah, my Marine brothers. I don't know what the Coast Guard or Navy says, but needless to say, well done to my infantry brothers in arms there, nonetheless. Anyway, carrying on with this episode 229 of the Crusty Canuck Podcast, the Tuesday Rant, episode 229 of the Crusty Canuck Podcast. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Like I just said, I gave the 3 points away. Now this is just going to be my little ramble. I'm going to start doing this towards the end of the episode. Do a little ramble, kind of carry on, whatever. Like I mentioned about the transgender issue. Let kids be kids. It's that simple. Let kids do their thing. And if they tend to feel something and they don't feel like talking to their parents, okay, I can understand that. But it's still not up to teachers to hide things that important from their parents. Okay? And to make that excuse about abuse, no, because it's an old Marxist tactic. Oh, if you don't trust your parents, you can trust us. Oh, if you don't trust this, you can trust us. Oh, yes. Well, we've got a fine array of things here to help you cope and to get along. Some would call that grooming. Now, I'm not saying grooming towards a sexual perverse nature. I'm saying grooming to a psychological manipulation nature. History's proven that, ladies and gentlemen. Something to think about, right? Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 12th of September, 2023. A special thank you out there once again to Michael, to Jess, to a lot of the people on my Twitter feed who've given me a thumbs up and liked my content. More is coming your way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to Crusty Canuck Podcast on the Tube, on Rumble, and on Podbean. Yes, I put this whole format on Podbean too, so you can see my mug, right? And see my disenchantment with the Canadian government, but my love for my country nonetheless. And my love for all of you out there, people who tune in, who give me the comments and say, yay, way to go. Thank you very much. And to the individual from Texas that commented in my last video, thank you very much. Please keep commenting, keep liking, share this stuff all around. And don't be afraid to speak your mind too in your own terms, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Don't be worried about someone deeming you as a xenophobe or as a homophobe or as Islamophobe or a pick your nose phobe or a buckle my shoe phobe. Screw the phobes. Speak your mind, right? I would like to think the majority of us folks are good-hearted people, and we just want to get along and live our lives and be left the hell alone. That simple, eh? You know, find our own little paradise and just carry on as nothing really matters, but it does. Our democracies matters, ladies and gentlemen, and there's a lot more at stake than what the mainstream media says. And especially those guys whining about not getting their fair share when they had a chance to improve their business model about 20 years ago, right? I'm talking to you, mainstreamers out there, towing the line, worrying about you're not getting paid your fair share, and yet you guys get quite a bit of perks, especially here in Canada. A lot of mainstream media gets a lot of government money. And what's government money, folks? What is government money? Taxpayer money. No more. Support independent media, support Rebel, support True North, support Druthers, support Daisy Media, support Greg Wycliffe, support Kevin Boardman, support The Pleb. Just these off the top of my head, some great content out there. Support Northern Perspective too. Those guys are awesome, right? Everybody I mentioned, support them too. Get better facts and figures out there. And guess what? Northern Perspective doesn't get paid. No, they don't. They do it because they love it. And I do it because I love it. I'd like to get paid too, but that's up to you, my wonderful audience, to make that happen. Anyway, like I said, I've been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 12th of September, 2023. I will not be around this Saturday. I will be working again. My work cycle starts again. So I'll have another Tuesday rant up for you next Tuesday and another episode the following Saturday. So pass the word around too. I try to get a video out every Tuesday and every other Saturday. So, like I say, without further ado, I have been Crusty Canuck once again. Do what you can to help each other in these trying times. Be charitable to the best of your ability. Be hospitable and try to be kind in a good way. You don't have to kiss people's ass, but just treat people the way you would like to be treated. It's that simple, you know, and we can get along just fine. Just don't take any bullshit from the so-called, half-assed wolves in sheep clothing. But I think you catch my drift. So anyway, I'll see you next Tuesday. And like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.
Well, smack my ass and call me Judy.